Is one step closer to electing its first Republican governor in 20 years. Steve Hilton advancing to November's general election, where he will face President Biden's former HHS secretary, Xavier Becerra. Meghan Hayes is former director of message planning for the Biden White House, and Alex Swoyer is the Washington Times editor-at-large. Ladies, good to have you this afternoon. So here's the latest on the race for governor. Xavier Becerra, 27.9%, 28% basically. Steve Hilton, 25%. They will advance to the runoff. The one thing, though, is that it's okay to come second in a jungle primary when the Democrat vote has been split 9 ways to Sunday. But you put the two of them head to head, and Meghan, it could be overwhelming for the Democrats.
Yeah, absolutely. And the Republicans only have about 22 to 25% Republican voter registration in the state of California. So I think really here the biggest losers that are people who are not mad that Tom Steyer didn't make it in here are consultants, right? Their ad buys are no longer going to be important because it's not going to be that competitive of a race. I think Steve Hilton will make some noise just because it's California, but this is not going to be a competitive race.
Well, you know, in the past, California has elected Republican governors. Could it be that Hilton combines Republicans with independents and disaffected Democrats and pulls it off in November?
I think that's a good point. I mean, it's like about a 2 to 3 point difference that we're seeing right now. Pretty tight. There's a lot of votes out there that went other ways that Hilton could use to try to go after. And you have to give it to him. He works really hard. He was on all sorts of broadcasts. I mean, like even small outlets I saw him doing, talking to voters. And so I wouldn't count him out just yet. I do think that the problem he's going to face is the enormous amount of money that's going to be spent against him. It's already been the most expensive governor's race that we've seen, and a lot of that came from Steyer, as you mentioned, who then just came out and endorsed Becerra, so it could be more money going that way as well.
I'm looking forward to the campaign. Katie Porter, Democrats for Hilton. Not sure that's going to happen. So Steve Hilton is making the case that decades of Democratic governance has basically turned California into a sclerotic mess. Listen to how he put it.
Nothing works in California because you've got people who don't know how to make things work. It's the same system that can't count votes, that can't build a train after 10 years and billions of dollars, that can't clear the homeless after 24 billions of dollars spent, that can't get anything right.
Meghan, does he have a point?
I mean, he does have a point. I'm not going to let him talk about my home state like that completely. It's a very big state, and there are some bureaucratic
How's that
problems.
high-speed train going?
But I hear you, but there also is a supermajority right now in the legislature, so he's going to have some challenges if he were to win. But California is a very large and diverse state. Actually, there are very large pockets of conservative Republicans that live in California, in the Central Valley, and in San Diego, and other places. So where I'm from is one of the most conservative places. So it's not as easy as he says it is. And also, I don't think that he should. He hasn't been there. He doesn't know. So wait until you get there and you'll find out that it's not as easy. Governing is not as easy as campaigning, as Donald Trump learns.
Yeah, so everybody learns that, right?
That's right.
So here's what Kamala Harris said on Becerra's win. She said, quote, "This race has featured a large field with many strong candidates, and I am confident that our party will now unite behind Xavier and his calm, steady brand of leadership." Calm, steady brand of leadership. Let's rewind the clock and see how Biden's domestic policy advisor, Susan Rice, described Becerra when he was HHS secretary. Rice referred to Becerra as a rhymes with which, and privately called him an idiot, according to multiple sources. How is it that in the Democratic Party people fail up?
Yes. Well, one of the things that I thought was notable, and I don't know, Meghan might chime in here and say, well, it was a primary, so people stayed out, but he was a Biden administration official, and he didn't really have much support from his fellow cabinet members. And so it took, I think, that post from Kamala Harris was posted 15 hours ago, so less than 24 hours for her to come out and support him. It doesn't show the energy that you would think, that especially with just talking about the most expensive race that we've seen with for a governor, that the Democrats would have been more vocal in backing him. So it could spell trouble for him. And, you know, like we just said, Hilton's really going to work it. So we shall see.
All right. So here's the part of the segment where it's called Put Meghan on the Spot. So I didn't know that you grew up in California.
I did.
Do you want Becerra as your governor?
I would rather have Becerra than Steve Hilton.
Really? Why?
Because I think I'm a Democrat, so I'd obviously want a Democrat in power. I also
clearly,
want
but
someone.
if you weren't voting for party lines, if you were voting for the best candidate?
I would still vote for Xavier Becerra. I think that he's just more aligned with my views, and I think that he understands the state. He's been an executive in the state. He's willing to stand up to Donald Trump. He sued them. And And also as someone from the Biden administration, I did not have the same experience as Susan Rice had with him, but I also didn't work as closely, so I can't discount that either. But I do think he is the best candidate for the state of California.
And I do think that this race goes to show that when you have a very strong Republican candidate in a blue state, that you do need the moderate Democrat to be at the top of at the forefront, because clearly, you know, the voters were not looking to go further to the left with Steyer.
Yeah, well, in many jurisdictions across this country, they are. So we'll see how that works out, much to Meghan's chagrin.
Next week's segment.
Be sure to like and subscribe for all the Fox News latest on YouTube and catch full shows streaming now on Fox One.